interview within Mindful Journey. And if this is your first time, again, welcome. If you've been with us for a number of these conversations, welcome back. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat function, and then we'll work to get to them on the back end of the conversation. I'm excited to bring you our guest today, Jim Shorkey. Jim and I have not met in person, candidly, but had a great conversation just about a month or so ago. I am, of course, familiar with the Jim Shorkey name, as he was the founder of the Jim Shorkey Auto Group. He currently is retired outside of that business, but not disengaged from business. He continues to be an entrepreneur, leads a company called Results from Thinking. Rethink You is a course that has 8 pillars, tenets, principles, call them what you may, that Jim has attributed to being what has been instrumental for his success in life. And how it is that he's been able to go from bankrupt, imminent, to growing a profitable business. And some of these steps that we'll dive into today are really meant to help you all live with more vitality, with more passion, with more energy, with more enthusiasm, and quite frankly, achieve success, whatever that may be defined by from your standards. We're here hoping to get incrementally better day after day, moment after moment. So with all that being said, Jim, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to our time together. Yes,
thank you for having me. I'm very excited as well. So thank you for this.
Of course. Would you mind sharing with the listeners, those who may be from outside the Western PA area, what your work had been for so many years leading Jim Shorkey Auto Group, and then what it is that you're doing now as well?
So correction, first of all, I am not the founder of the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group. My father is. And the business was founded by my mom and dad in 1974. I was a senior in high school, graduating, going on to college from there. And so I was the original janitor at the dealership when they started in 1974. And I was a darn good janitor. I really took pride in that job. So I went off to college, came back, worked summer jobs while I was in college. I was a janitor, car washer, car detailer. I was a parts guy. I was a service guy. I sold cars. And I graduated from college in 1978 and came directly to the dealership from there. And I started selling cars, sold cars for a little over a year, moved into management, and then moved up and up and up, up. My father and I and mother together, we bought out my dad's partner, Mr. Hamilton. And so at that point, once it was paid off, I owned 24% of the stock of the corporation, and my mom and dad owned 76%. And so things progressed forward. I was the heir apparent designated. And when my father died very suddenly on March 24th, 1996, I often say if I was half as smart as I thought I was when my dad died, I would have been really smart. The fact is I had no clue. And but it was my big chance. I was ego driven, arrogant, know-it-all. I decided I was going to run the business the way I wanted to run it. So I proceeded to do that. And I'm running the business the Jim Shorkey way. People try to give me help, advice, because my dad had died. And I wasn't interested. I was going to do it my way. 2 years later, I'm bankruptcy imminent. Too much month at the end of the money. I was a negative $100,000 in the bank account. I was going down. And at the time, I was reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I got my highlighter, I got my pencil, I'm underlining. I'm doing what he's telling me to do. And I did all the steps. And one of the big points of the book is this idea of seek expert counsel. Find somebody who is smarter than you, who has done what you want to do successfully, and have a conversation. And so the only guy I could think of was Mr. Hamilton, who was my dad's former partner that he and I had bought out. And I knew that he knew. I knew that he was a good dealer, car dealer. He had the boats, he had the cars, he had the house in Florida. He had all the things that I wanted to have. And he was very well thought of. And so anyways, I would go into Mr. Hamilton, hat in hand, and I told him, I said, Mr. Hamilton, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. And I asked him for a list of 10 things that I should be doing to be a successful automobile dealer. And he called me James. He said, James, let me think about that. You come back tomorrow morning and I'll have a list for you. So dutifully, I go back the next morning. He hands me this really neatly typed up list. I wish I had the list. I don't have it. It'd be great to be able to show it to you. But he gives me this list. And the first thing I do, like a lot of people, I'm looking at the list. And I came to realize I'm not doing anything on this list. There wasn't one thing I was doing. So I proceeded to start to do the list. And that needle, which was flatlined, no pulse, started to move. And so I kept doing a list. It kept doing it. But I proceeded from there to go back to Mr. Hamilton on a weekly basis to have a conversation, kept asking questions, kept getting new ideas. I call them disciplines, new disciplines. And then Mr. Hamilton recommended that I join a think tank, which I did. And I would go to the think tank and I have a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper. I would write at the top of that paper, I am here to learn. No more arrogance. And so that's a big part of my fundamental life journey is arrogance is a really bad idea. Anyways, so I'm in think tanks and I would write, I'm here to learn. I'd write the number 1 down and it'd be a blank space next to it. And I'd look for my first idea. So I kept doing that. I just kept going and going and going. And so the business became incredibly successful. It was really beyond my wildest imagination. When I started, it was 1 dealership, my dad's dealership. And when I left, it was 6. When I started, it was 40 employees. When I left, it was, I think, around 500. And now that same group, which the children own and operate and run it totally independent of myself. I'm not involved at all. And it's now selling probably, I don't know for sure, probably 12,000 cars a year versus when I peaked out, it was maybe around 5,000. So it's way bigger. It's now 20 dealerships and they're really doing well. But I got a lot of trophies and I got a lot of awards and I got a lot of handshakes and pats on the back and call outs like, hey, Jim Shorkey's here. Hey, look, this is the guy, that kind of a thing. But I knew when it was happening in my heart of hearts, I knew that it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was the mentors. And I thought, geez, if I take this knowledge to the grave with me, I'm going to be really selfish in doing that. So I decided in 2013 that someday I'm going to open up a company and I'm going to teach the people what I know. And so when I retired 2016, I started this idea and it's called Results from Thinking. And the program, which is Rethink You 2.0, it is literally exactly what I did for my part in building the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group to what it is today. And I teach this idea, and that's what Rethink You is all about.
Absolutely, Jim. Yeah, lots of points to pull out of there. Thanks for the clarification on my mishap of initiating founders. But yeah, identifying the point you made of people were calling you out, shaking your hand, giving you a pat on the back. How did you ensure your arrogance didn't get at a high when you promised yourself that you were going to remain humble? Because in our encounters, I do view you as a man of humility. And I also subscribe to that. I think we need more humility in this world. Arrogance is why I think you can look at challenges in rising mental health and folks who get into addictive tendencies, et cetera. It's because they feel like they need to have this outward appearance of arrogance to project strength, but it inherently diminishes what they're feeling internally. How did you ensure that all of these accolades did not cause you to remain or get back to a state of arrogance?
And that said, arrogance is the number 1 enemy of any successful enterprise, be it a church, be it a marriage, be it a friendship, be it a business, doesn't matter what it is. It's the number 1 enemy. Arrogance pushes people away. So if you're running a business, do you want to push people away? Do you want to push your wife away, your children, your friends, whatever the case may be? So the reason that first of all, I did make a promise, which was a very sincere promise, but I knew what happened. I'm a realist. I knew what happened. The reason that I failed, and I was a failure. Let's make no doubt about that. I was a failure. I was a loser. And a lot of people want to hear me talk this way. They want to interrupt me and say, Jim, no, you're never a loser. Yeah, I was losing and I was a loser. And I had to figure that out. Losing is a call to action. Losing is an opportunity to dissect the information and figure out where you went wrong and let's go fix it. So arrogance was my first problem because I had people call me wanting to help. They were my dad's friends. I wasn't interested. So when I was getting all the awards and the trophies and the trips and all the different things, I knew that wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't. And as a matter of fact, you may or may not know this, but there's 3 fundamental goals at the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group that grew out of this. Number 1 goal of the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group is to love the customer. And I do mean love them. Kiss them, hug them. I'm talking figuratively here. Love on them. Because if we don't love our customers, we won't have any customers. So I want you to really ponder that and think about that. The second number 1 goal, and it sounds illogical, right? How could you have 2 number 1 goals? because this is really important. So the second number one goal is to love the team. And I do mean hug them, kiss them. Again, figuratively speaking, love on our team. Because if we don't love our customers, there's not going to be any customers. If we don't love our team, there's not going to be anybody to love the customers. So it implodes from there. Number one goal, love the customer. Number one goal, love the team. Now, if you do number one, love the customer, and number one, love the team really well, you get to be crazy successful. And I'm zeroing in on what you asked me. We get to be really successful, and the things, the money, the profit, the car, everything starts to fly. And the number one enemy of any successful enterprise, as I've already said, I'm repeating myself, but it has to go in line with what I'm telling you. The number one enemy is arrogance. So I developed my third goal, almost number one of the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group, was to keep it very humble. And that was the one, ironically, that I had to really aggressively attack the most, because I would hear a conversation, I would hear two team members talk, whatever the case may be, and I say, hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to get it. If you don't change this arrogant attitude, you're going to have to make room for somebody else, because we're not going to let this happen. The number one enemy of any successful enterprise is arrogance. So the third goal, almost number one, is to keep it very humble. I started that idea back in 2008 at the beginning of the Great Recession, the worst recession since the Great Depression. I developed what is called what we called the prosperity plan, and it was in there. But I had already been practicing it before that because of what I promised Napoleon Hill, and because I knew I could see what happened. And I'm not going back there. When you wake up in the morning, you have a negative $100,000 in your bank account. Not a fun day. So I didn't want to go back there. Pain is a great teacher. You put your hand on that hot burner one time, you won't do it again.
So true. We all face different painful moments, be it physical, emotional, mental, etc. Yet, as much as we talk about it, it's easy to say, yeah, I'm willing to learn from my failures. But what I find from personal experiences, a lot of people don't like to talk about their shortcomings and failures. What might you recommend to us, the listeners here who are going through a painful time in their life, Jim, that they want to suppress, and maybe they're looking to different substances, etc., to suppress? What did you do to ensure that you could confront those painful moments and continue? What have you done to ensure that these painful moments, these failures, if you will, don't go by the wayside, but you're willing to dive into them and face them and confront them?
First of all, let's understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is not medical advice. I'm a worn out old car salesman. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an MD. I'm not a psychiatrist. So this is not medical advice. But I'm only going to answer the question from the perspective of what So number one, when you are failing, which I've failed many times, failing is nothing more than information. And if you are failing, it's a pretty darn good indication that you're probably doing something wrong. And so if we could just isolate it and say, wait a second, wait, I heard that Jim Shorkey cat say, this is just information. So I'm failing. I have an F, or my times aren't as good as I wanted them to be, or I didn't sell as many cars as I wanted to. Whatever the case, I'm failing relative to what I want to accomplish. So it's information. And the information being that I'm probably doing something wrong. So that being said, the first step in my genre of what I want to do when I'm failing is to call it out. See, suppression is going to create depression. So I do not want to suppress my losing. I want to call it out. I want to put it out on the table. I want to look at it. I want to hug it. I want to kiss it. I want to massage it. I want to say, okay, what is this? What is it? What is it? What's going on here? And then I want to figure out, okay, what do I want to do from here? This is a fundamental idea that I want to share with the audience today. Things get better when I get better. And my question to the audience is, what if that's true? What if things get better when I get better? So let's talk about self-doubt. When we do fail, we have self-doubt oftentimes. In other words, we don't think that we can get out of the failure. We feel hopeless. So what is the antidote to self-doubt? Self-improvement. Things get better when I get better. So if that's true, which it is, then I got to start working on me. I got to start working on me. Jim Rohn used to say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
Yes.
So if you're losing at your job, go to work on you. And that's where the expert counsel comes in. Who is your Mr. Hamilton? Who is your book? Who is your YouTube video? Who is it that you want to listen to say, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's what I learned about self-development. I really did listen to these different people. My first experience with self-development was Brian Tracy. Brilliant man. And I listened to him and I thought, holy cow, what is this? And I
Yeah.
started from there. So I always felt that if somebody else could do X, then I could do X as well. Bottom line is what I do is based on expert counsel. So first of all, I have a goal, right? It's very important to have a very clear, concise, crystal clear goal. So I have a goal. And then I have reasons why that make me highly emotional. Okay. If your reasons why don't make you cry, you're probably on the wrong goal. So number one is establishing a goal. Number two, do my reasons why make me cry. Then I seek expert counsel to figure out how am I going to get from where I'm at now to the goal. And so there's going to be a series of steps. I call that my list. There's going to be a to-do list and a to-not-do list, which I'm engaged in right now. On my to-do list is to eat wild-caught salmon 2 or 3 times a week. On my list is to do blueberries and olive oil, not necessarily that order, every day, leafy greens, different things, physical exercise. So I've got this list of things to do. Now, when I do my list, sometimes I am going to come up short. And so what I would say about that is we're looking for progress. The goal is perfection. It's always perfection, but the hidden goal is progress. As long as I'm progressing towards perfection, then that's good. And I go to sleep at night. I look at what I did, and it was a failure of a day. And I don't dwell on it. What I do is I recommit to the list. And I'm going to give you an idea that everybody should embrace. When morning comes around and it's time to rise and shine, mean it. I'm going to rise and I am going to shine. So even though I came up short yesterday, I've got my list. And now today, I'm going to try to get this whole list done. And I'm going to keep doing that and doing it. Over time, there will be the up days and the down days or the mediocre days. But over time, I will consistently get the whole list done or pretty darn close. And I'm going to get to where I want to get to. You absolutely have to move on from the down day. You have to leave it behind you. It's over. It's done. You'll sleep better. Be grateful for what you did do today. If you have a list of 10 things and you got one thing done, you did get one thing done. So embrace that. So I'm glad I did that. And then give yourself some grace as to the things you didn't do and just recommit to the list for tomorrow. Because today's over. We're going to sleep and we don't want to go to sleep with this called rumination. Rumination is a killer. So we don't want to ruminate. We want to give ourselves grace, be grateful for what you did do today. And maybe you didn't get the list done because you went to visit a sick friend, or maybe you had a number of errands to run. And so even though you didn't get the list done, you still did these things, which let's face it, you can't get 26 hours out of a 24-hour day. You just can't do it. There's only so much time in the day. So there may be some reasons why you didn't get the list done. And it may be just a shortfall on your part, but let's give ourselves a break. But we got to commit to tomorrow is the day. I'm going to start today. When I say rise and shine, I'm just challenging the audience to mean it. I'm going to shine today. Today's my shine day. And then we'll evaluate that at the end of the day and say, I didn't get 10 out of 10, but you know what? I got 7 out of 10, whereas yesterday I only got 1. That's a huge victory.
Definitely.
So it serves no purpose. Rumination serves no purpose whatsoever. It just doesn't. So does that answer your question to yourself?
Yeah, I love this, Jim, because in my roundabout way, I know I can get lengthy on the question asked, and you're pulling out the key points of it and giving us great answers.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's Theodore Roosevelt, by the way. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so if I go back to the fundamental rules of the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group, the fundamental goals, it truly is love the customer, and it truly is love the team, and it truly is keep it very humble. And so our idea would be to have you come into the dealership. And so my idea would be to have a conversation with you to try to figure out what it is that is most important to you relative to the car buying experience. So I would say to you, I would say, Adam, we've got roughly 2,000 cars on the lot right now. And if we spend 5 minutes looking at every car, okay, we're at 10,000 minutes, divide that by 60. We're going to be here for hours. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you a few questions so that I can narrow down what my recommendations would be. Would that be okay?
Yes.
So let's walk through it. Adam, in your process called car buying, car ownership, today, tomorrow, and even down the road, 10 years down the road, your whole car buying relationship, let's call it. What is most important to you?
Yeah. So still safe, reliable, and affordable
Okay. Why is safety so important to you?
so that I can live to see 100 years old and see my great grandchildren at some point and hold them as well.
Do you see what I just did? I took it from logic to emotion. You want me to keep going?
No.
From logic to emotion. So by the way, I'm taking notes. And so when I get, I'm gonna find a car that's safe. I'm gonna show you every aspect of this car that makes it safe. The airbags, the ABS, the whole everything. And I'm gonna ask you, it's my first close. We're not even in the showroom. We're not even sitting in the showroom. We're outside looking at the car. I'll say, Adam, you mentioned when you first came in that safety was very important to you. You said you want to get to be 100 years old so that you can hold your great grandchildren. That's what you said, correct? Do I have that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think this car would satisfy that safety requirement?
Yes, I do.
Great. And then I'm going to go into reliability, and then I'm going to go into affordability, and I'm going to make it the idea behind entrepreneurship is to find a need, fill the need in the most efficient manner possible, and then charge for that.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it for Pitt. And selling is nothing more than a transfer of enthusiasm. So in order to be enthusiastic, or in order to be a good salesman, I have to have the enthusiasm in me. If I gather the right information, I can enthusiastically present the safety aspects of this car. And I'm transferring the enthusiasm from in here to you. And so
That's
you're
right.
going to be enthusiastic about the safety, the reliability, and the financial aspect of it. And if I do all these things efficiently, then I'm going to sell you a car today or tomorrow or whatever. It really does. If we can find out what the client wants and satisfy the wants and needs, and if we can really know at an emotional core why these things are important to them, then we got a winner.
Yeah.
And so the other guys they're not on the table anymore. And so when you say about these different models that are out there, yeah, they're out there. They have nothing to do with the Jim Shorkey Family Auto Group, nothing whatsoever. We operate a traditional model. People do come into us. People do want to drive the car, kick the tire, sit in the car, smell the car, the whole thing. Are there people out there that want to buy a car in a different fashion? Yeah, we'll do the best we can with those as well. But the vast majority of our sales, I think, are the traditional methodology that I used 30 years ago. And I'll give you, okay, I'm going to answer a question that you haven't even answered me. A good friend of mine, who is a great salesman, he recommended a book to me called Selling Through Intimidation. It's actually a real book. It's on Amazon. And my instant thought was, not interested. I'm not going to sell this way. You know what I said to him? I said, have you ever tried to sell through love? Have you ever tried to sell through love? I love my customers. I'm going to intimidate them? Does that sound like love?
Not at all.
So it's
Right.
like, I love books. I don't want this book. I love this guy. I don't care. I don't want the book. I don't like the title. So I'm not going to sell through intimidation. I'm going to sell through love. I'm not going to talk to my team through intimidation. Although I made that mistake. I admit it, but that's not the answer is to love my team. Now, sometimes we do have to discipline and reprimand and all that. But we don't have to be disrespectful. We can do it with love. We can say, you know what? You did XYZ yesterday. I'm not happy about it. I need you to fix this. If you don't fix it, you're going to have to make room for somebody else, but I don't need to be disrespectful. And oftentimes, unfortunately for me, I was in fact disrespectful. And that's where you have to call it out. You have to be a big boy and call it out. Sometimes I will call it out right in the middle of a meeting and say, you know what? I talked to Joe yesterday. I was disrespectful. Joe, I want to apologize to you in front of the team. I hope to never do this again. And I'm sorry. It's not cool. What I did was not cool. I was disrespectful. I think that if you look at running a business centered around disrespect. It's just the business can make $1 million. It's just not a fun business. It's just
That's
not.
right. That's right.
Disrespectful. Oh God, how do you live with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass this on to my children. And the first thing we do is we disrespect everybody. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Count me in. No, we love everybody. We
Yeah.
love our customers. We love our team. And we are going to keep it very humble. And I don't know, did you ever hear the story of Bill Walton?
I have not. Just one second before I answer, I just wanted to.
That's what
I know I want to hear. There's a guest who said he had to run. I just wanted to acknowledge him. Carlos, thanks if you're still on. Thanks for being here. He mentioned, as always, great insight, good information. Thank you, Carlos. And then we do have a question from another guest too that come in relative to arrogance. But let's know. I want to hear the Bill Walton because we still got time. Anyone who needs to jump can jump. As long as your time is still good. I'm sorry, Jim. I just wanted to get to those before the guest popped off. So yeah, please, I love, obviously Bill has recently passed. For those not familiar, Bill Walton was an NBA legend. You're talking about the basketball star, right?
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
I know.
Just recently passed.
John Wooden died.
Yeah, Bill Walton. Bill Walton just
really?
passed.
Okay.
Yeah, about a month.
Well, here's the story.
Yes.
Bill Walton is arguably the greatest college basketball player ever, all-time great NBA player, one of the greatest basketball players ever. I don't think anybody would ever argue with that. He was great. So he's a young guy. He's in college. UCLA wins the national championship. Bill Walton is the most valuable player. And so John Wooden had a policy, no facial hair, no hair over the ears. And Bill Walton was a hippie. He was decidedly a hippie. And he was one of these guys. And so they win the national championship. Walton is the most valuable player. So the next year they come to fall ball and they're shooting around. And Walton has a long red beard, long hair. And Coach Woodenbottom had a policy, never cursed, never raised his voice. He just didn't do it. So he calls Bill Walton over. He says, Bill, can I get a word with you? And Walton goes over and says, Coach, I know what you're going to say. And I want to be very clear here. This is my face. This is my beard. This is my hair. And I live in America, the land of the free. I can wear my hair however I want to. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. Yeah. John Wooden looks him in the eye and says, you know what, Bill, you're right. You're right. It is your hair. It is your beard. You do live in America. It is the land of the free. And you can wear your hair and facial however you want. I agree with you. We're going to miss you. That's on YouTube. And what do you think Bill Walton did?
He stayed. He shaved his beard and he stayed.
Raced across town on his bike. He rode a bike, 7-footer, rides his bike, goes across town, finds the first barber shop, throws the bike down, runs inside and says, cut it off, cut it all off. And he shaved. And he comes back. And it's a great story. YouTube it, and there's more to it, little other details. But okay, anyways, but yeah, we're going to miss you. You don't have to be disrespectful. John Wooden was not disrespectful. He just said, we're going to miss you. We love you. We're going to miss you. And the fact is, you got to make room for somebody who is going to comply with our ethics. And that's what I had to learn as a leader to be, to corrective action and be respectful. And sometimes we did have to eliminate people because they weren't cooperating.
Well, and culture is everything in a business, in my opinion, and it requires intentionality. So I've always been a believer that in business, in my speaking leadership training days prior to rolling out Mindful Journey, I had the good fortune of working with a lot of companies with really effective leaders. And I would often ask them, would you be willing to keep your highest performer who's who brings the most toxicity, or would you rather have somebody who's a mid-average performer who's a great cultural fit? And inevitably it was always, we want the great cultural fit because we can train for the technical skill sets. Because a high performer, even if you're talking about a salesperson, he or she's generating $1 million of revenue. If they're bringing down 2 million in revenue and people turning over, they're not really generating revenue for you. So I love what you said about that Wooden story, Jim. You and I are and I hope our relationship continues to evolve because I love your mind, and we could have Mindful Journey guest interview 2.0 and talk all business because there's so much value that you bring from that vantage point. But let me get to the guest question that popped in. The guest asked, where does arrogance, this is dating 12/10 was when it came in. So when we were talking about arrogance, where does arrogance come from and why do people start getting it as they start succeeding?
Arrogance is I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. Arrogance is mean-spirited. Arrogance basically means that I'm better than you. So therefore, why would I listen to your knowledge, your information? It's very dismissive. It comes from, it's like a human condition that you see it everywhere. And It's just a very slippery slope from the perspective that it pushes people away. If you go into a room and you meet this arrogant person, you're probably going to move away from that person towards somebody that's really kind and really nice and sweet and gentle. And I don't know. I despise it, and I despise it in myself. Um, it's just where does it come from? It's having a wrong perspective on life. And for me, I got burnt by my own arrogance. When my father died, he was part of a think tank. And being a member of this think tank, when the founder dies, the think tank brings in a team of people to help the survivors run the business. So I get the phone call. Says it was Jeff. Jeff says, Jim, we're going to bring a team in to help you out. I said, not interested. I got this. And I resigned from the group. That's
Wow.
arrogance. And I messed
Yeah.
up. But guess what? When I joined, and actually ended up joining the same group, but rejoined a couple years later when I was bankruptcy imminent, and I would go into those meetings and I would write on top of the paper, I am here to learn. See, that's the
Yeah.
antithesis
I love that.
of arrogance. I am here to learn. And in order to learn, I got to shut my mouth, open up my ears, and open up my eyes and really listen. And interesting enough, when you talk about listening, active listening is a very complicated subject because depending who you talk to, anywhere from 70 to 90% of our communication as human beings is nonverbal. So when somebody will say to me, Joe Schmo, he'd be a great salesman. He's got the gift of gab. My immediate answer is that's exactly what's going to make him or her a terrible salesperson. Selling is not about gabbing. Selling is about listening.
Listening.
You have 2 ears and 2 eyes. So you listen with your eyes, you listen with your ears, and the best thing you can do is shut up and stop
Yeah.
talking and let
Yeah.
them talk to you. Because when you talk so much, they take that as arrogance and it
Yeah.
pushes them away. But if you listen, hold on a second, could you say that again? You really are showing them verbally and non-verbally that you care. People don't care how much they know how much you care. And by active listening with your eyes and your ears, you're presenting a case of non-arrogance. So I don't know, maybe another answer to that question would be, how does it happen? It happens due to mindlessness, due to not being present, due to being so caught up in the positioning of your tie that you're not paying attention to the customer, the client.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I just think I guess back to the corporate philosophy of the Jim Shorkin Family Auto Group, love the customer. And I do mean love them, love on them, do that. How could you be arrogant and love on somebody? Love the team. How could you be arrogant and love on a team? And when you do proceed into arrogance with your team, you're not loving them.
Yeah. For
You're not
sure.
loving them.
For
You're really
sure.
not. You're really not.
For sure. Jim, we can pause there, but I am so deeply grateful to you.
Me
You
too.
were
Me too.
absolutely amazing. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for the wisdom. Thanks to those of you who are still on with us here currently, or those who end up seeing us on demand and make it through this point. Jim, I will put a link to his website to Rethink You 2.0 so that you can learn more about that program and course. And then, of course, the link to this will sit in the on demand for Mindful Journey and then on YouTube, etc. But Jim, you and I will connect offline, of